What does it mean to live from the inside out? What does it mean to have an authentic life, even with all the technology and AI that's available? Friend, I'm so excited that you are here for Simply Sarah. Our guest today, our special guest who's returning, is Christy Jones. And you are going to be just in for such an incredible conversation. So let's get started. And as I promised, Christy Jones is here. You were here in season 1. Here we are in season 2 already. And I couldn't wait for us to have this conversation because we've been having these conversations about things that happen from the inside out, but you also have been doing so much research and you are just so aware of how technology is impacting lives. Christy, how did you get to where you are today?
Wow. Well, thank you, Sarah. I'm always honored and thrilled to spend time with you and just see what shows up in our conversations. And so your question is, how did I get to where I am today?
How did you get, yes, you are a holistic health and wellness coach. You encourage people on so many different levels. You go into public schools, you get paid to be there and working with them. You are seeing firsthand on the very cutting edge what technology is doing for, and maybe we could even say against, our children. And you teach this beautiful practice of living life from the inside out. You had an incredible trip to Maui this summer. You've just, maybe it's the Big Island.
Big Island, yes.
And you've been looking at regenerative farming, what that looks like and means. You're ripping out your own yard to make some changes there. You just have so much going on, and all of it is moving forward at a beautiful pace, and it's all beautifully woven together.
Yeah.
So most of our lives are not as woven together as yours. How did you get to this place?
I think it's just being open to say yes when I don't really know what I'm doing. And I feel like I've just had opportunities or doors open for me in life. And I've just said yes, not knowing on what's the other side of the door. And, part of that I become aware of, I didn't understand intuition or gut feelings when I was younger. And yet I have a feeling that I've always been listening, like that feels right. That feels right. I mean, how many of us have this feeling like something feels right? We might not know what it is, but we get a sense in our body that we can move forward. And I just feel like I've had just miraculous doors open that have created this pathway that, continues to weave, right? A lot of times I feel like I can overwhelm people easily because I'm bringing in these different aspects, but to me, they all flow together. And it can seem like a lot, but it's not really. It's just a different aspect or another part of something. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's just such a great way of saying it. And I love that idea of saying yes. There's a book written by Michael Singer, and he talks about this process of learning to say yes. Just say yes and see what happens. And I know that that's been part of my journey in the last 3 months, has been if somebody needs to ask a question, to say yes, even before the question is over. Yes, I'm working with trusted people, and so what they're going to be asking is not going to be out of the realm of whatever.
I would always listening to your gut, right? Make sure if your gut is saying yes and your internal, wisdom saying yes, then say yes. If you're getting that no, then we don't follow that. But
Exactly. So listening internally, where does it show up for you? I know that before we turned the cameras on, before we began this time together, that we did just a really brief exercise of allowing our intuitive gut to connect with our emotional heart, and then allowing that to connect in with our thinking brain, and just making sure that the three of those were connected. An easy but profound experience to do that, just allowing ourselves to be aligned with that intuitive gut, emotional heart, and thinking mind. So what are some things that you do to be able to listen in, to know that the answer is yes, or that the answer is, whoo, sit this one out, girlfriend?
I think that we continue to grow and to experience life in layers or in a deeper way. And for me this summer, I've had a lot of time, without teaching. I really took the summer to just enjoy summer like I was a kid. And it's given me time to pause and reflect and to be more internal of what am I actually experiencing inside of myself in different situations that I'm in. And what I'm going to say isn't new, but it's been that process of really being able to be aware of what am I experiencing in this situation, what feelings are coming up, what emotions are coming up, and turning them inside, really looking inside. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I did this summer was listen to The Myth of Normal by Dr. Gabor Mate. Highly recommend that book. It's about 18 hours on Audible. So it is a time investment. And one of the things he talked about was that a child is always responding to their environment. They're responding or reacting to their environment. And so often we think it's the child's behavior and a child gets in trouble, but it's they're responding to the environment. So I happened to be at a like a fireside ceremony where we were writing down things that we wanted to release and throwing them in the fire. And the question was, what were you not in charge of, weren't in control of, that you feel like you need to forgive or let go of? And so I took that time to just see what came up for me. And what came up for me was that when I was a child, I was always told that I was really nervous. And so, I was always, my parents, as loving as they are, right, would always be, Christy, you're so nervous. Why are you so nervous? Why are you worried all the time? Stop it. And I realized as I was stepping back and reflecting and really honoring that my parents had the tools that they had, and that they have this immense love for me, but they thought it was me. And so I was reflecting that at that time in my life as a young child, my mom had almost died twice. My sister passed away when I was 7, and then my mom almost died again. And there were just lots of traumas that as a young child, I did not feel safe. I was in fight or flight. And so I was responding to my environment. And instead of being told, you're so nervous, right? Stop it. It would have been different if I would have been given a hug, right? Yes. Or, you know what, you're safe. We've got you. It's okay. Yes. And so I realized, like, okay, I need to talk to this like inner child of myself. And I truly believe that we are powerful souls that come into our bodies, come into this life experience at the exact right time. Yes. So we show up at the right time, and we have these experiences that we experience. We're here to overcome or to thrive in those experiences. I realized that, I came to have these experiences with my mom and my dad. And so I started talking to my younger self, reminding myself, like, do you know how courageous you are? Do you know how much courage it took for you to be in these situations? And so you are not those labels. The truth is, you've always been courageous and strong. Yes. And so I wrote the labels that I had been given with so much love and compassion to my parents and to my younger self, wrote those down and threw them in the fire and let those go. And I replaced that with the truth that I've always been courageous. Yes. And how I know there's a difference for me is there's a felt sense in my body, right? So I've done practices before where I've changed things. Okay, that was a cool experience. But literally, I feel like if we can imagine like our energy field, right, goes 8 feet out. Yes. This is the best way I can explain it. I worked with a woman that does sound healing, and she talked about how she's working within your field, taking energy that's been kind of, floating around your field that's been trauma or disconnected, and she's bringing it back to your core, right? Back into your chakra system. So I feel like I had this part of me, like a lost part of myself or a suppressed part of myself, right? This energy was in my field. And as I did this work, I literally felt like myself grounded, strong, confident, courageous. And so I'll just be in my day and I'll just kind of think of myself, when I was young, and I'll be like, do you know how courageous you are? You are so courageous. And so the sense I have in my body is literally been like a return to self, or self retrieval, right? Of a part of myself that I had maybe been lost as a child. So does that make sense?
Christy, it does. And there's just such power in the conversation about children reacting to their environment. And I do believe that inside the gene keys also is going to be some of the DNA that's written for who we are, for our experiences, how we perceive the world, how we interact with things, some of the lessons that we might be here to try to figure out or to work through or choose not to. All of those options are fine. And, sometimes people talk about, moving into a place and that this is much preferred. I don't know that there's not an easy path. So whichever path that you choose, and none of them are straight lines, right? So path, it's going to require work. It's going to require reflection at some point, whether you do that in your free time or you do that awake. It's going to show up at some point. And in that, to know that the labels of what people said about us was their way of labeling our reflection of our experience of how we were seeing and interpreting the space around us. And I think that that's such a powerful place of realizing that it's not a label, it's a mirror. And once you see that it's a mirror, you can, do puppets in the mirror. You can change the lighting in the mirror. You can do all the different things. It's a mirror. And the mirror doesn't hold. It doesn't keep. It's not a static picture. It's fluid in terms of allowing things to move and to be in its space or not in its space. That's super powerful, Christy. In this space of your summer, I happen to know that you've spent some time on regenerative farms, and I don't know if you did. Actually, you did do that as a child, because your grandparents had beautiful space of all kinds of gardens and things. And so this again was part of you going back into your childhood, and as an adult having the opportunity, what an incredible opportunity, because you took it, to go and experience and see and do. So what have you learned in the regenerative farming area?
Yeah, so much. And, to me, it was really important before COVID. My focus in schools was teaching children, to love eating fresh foods, especially vegetables. And, walking in after COVID, we didn't have food in the classroom. So I haven't been bringing that piece into the classroom and feeling very called that we know we're at a tipping point right now in society, in the world. Right? That, with the amount of lack of fertility, we're at 1 out of 3 men infertile, heading to 1 out of 2, 1 out of 4 women infertile. So with the lack of fertility and then the disease epidemics that we have as a human race, we have about 60 to 80 years left, on the planet. And I don't say that to be scary, but I feel like it's important that we can look at, if we keep on going on this same path, we're not setting ourselves up for success. And as Dr. Zach Bush talks about, that we have a window, probably about 10 years, of being able to reconnect to ourselves, reconnect to the fact that we're nature, and then restore, right? Regenerate the soil, because what's going on in the soil is going on internally in us as well. And so feeling that call to action, that how can I, bring that important wisdom of how to regenerate the soil into the school system, into my daily life where it's more present, into every aspect of, I did a talk this morning on regenerating the soil at an event that I was asked to talk to at. How can I educate people so they become excited and passionate about it too?
Yes.
And so with that, I had such an amazing opportunity. I used to run a CSA in Glendora, probably about 5 years ago, and was able to go visit the farmer that had started that CSA. And he, at that point in time when we ran the program together, he was organic and now has gone 100% regenerative. and
Wow.
is the only farmer in the United States that's what's called regenerative organic gold level certification. So he knows his stuff. And for
Yes.
somebody that's not familiar with regenerative farming or regenerative practices, regenerative means that the focus is on the soil, right? It's healing the soil, that when we have healthy soil that's filled with microbes and has a lot of organic matter, it actually pulls carbon from the air, right? Because the soil and the plants need carbon, right? And those microbes and that healthy soil then create nutrient dense plants. So vegetables, trees, fruit trees, whatever you're growing is actually going to have the nutrients that our bodies need. So they can use absolutely zero chemicals. No matter what's going on, there's not one chemical allowed. But organic, there's up to 200 chemicals or pesticides organic farmers can use. And their focus is not on the soil. So you can have something that's considered technically organic that still has pesticides sprayed, and the soil is void of nutrients. So I just wanted to bring that kind of clarification in there. And so,
love,
yeah. What did you want to share?
I love, sure, that Dr. Zach Bush also talks about we do have a window, that there are things that we can do. And one of the things for me as a consumer, I know that years ago people talked about we vote with our dollars, and I was like, yeah. I am here to tell you that we vote with our dollars. And so by being able to find people who are doing regenerative farming and being able to purchase things, I know that on Instagram where we live, that you can put that in and find the people and go to the Saturday farmers markets, and know they aren't year round. But if I'm investing into what they are producing, there's a much better chance that next spring that they will have those things again for us to be able to come back with, right? And the other thing is to look for communities that have been perhaps ones that in America we might think of being pulled away. So like Mennonite or Amish, or ones that have a stronger connection to the ground. They're going to also be ones who have figured out that they never needed to use the chemicals along the way, because what we're doing was working and providing the most incredible vegetables. And I say that because where we live, it's, if you go to the Saturday market, the longest line, like 60 people long, is for the Mennonite farmers, because their vegetables are bigger, they are more flavorful, they are picked when they're ripe. And yes, there are other people who are there who are selling very similar kinds of things. That's not where the line is. The line is for them because of the difference in quality and the flavor. And so, yes, voting with your dollars, and we turn this around. There's still space. There's still time to do that.
Yeah,
one of the things
absolutely. And what you're sharing even just reminded me of one of my experiences, when I went to spend time with Uncle Vern on his farm in Kingsburg. He's a stone fruit farmer. So we were walking on this one peach orchard, and he said, just listen to the life here, right? There's a beautiful ground cover, right? Diverse plants growing on the ground. There's little frogs jumping. There's crickets, and you could just see life, right? And so then I walked over to another farm that was a conventional farm, and once again growing peaches. They look like peaches, right? And there's no ground cover. The soil's depleted, and it's silent. And he just said, the animals know. Nature knows. Right? So it also sounds like people, when we're aware, we notice a difference as well too. And
that's what I was going to share also, that part, because that for me was such an important piece about how loud, when you did that video about being on Uncle Vern's farm and listening into how loud it was, there was just all kinds of conversation going on in the insects and frogs and all the different things. And that they were there because it was healthy, because it was good. So some of us who live in the city for quite a while may feel a little uncomfortable initially with lizards being around, although they are super helpful with eating ants and other kinds of things. Some of us may feel a little bit concerned when we see a spider. However, these are really important pieces to a healthy ecosystem. And even black widows, when we were living in a house that had quite a few of them in one particular season, We had somebody who came to our house who just happened to be there and noticed one and said, "Oh, this is really good." And then he said, "I collect them and I put them up in the eaves of the house because I never have termite issues as a result of having black widows in the eaves." And I just thought, well, there is a way of doing it, right? So just different ways of being able to look at the same kind of thing. We want our houses to be protected. We want our bodies to be protected. How can we best do that? So Christy, you go off to the Big Island this summer and you have another regenerative farm experience while you were there. What did you learn in this space?
Yeah, I mean, it was really an interesting experience because before I went to Hawaii, I didn't even think about what I wanted to do. And a friend said, "What are you going to do when you're here?" And I said, I want to go to a regenerative farm. And I just went on my phone and found this farm. And, I just assumed like they just have tours, right? That's what farms would do, right? And so the next day I called this farm and the gentleman said, "I don't really do farm tours, but I would love to meet you and your friend. And can you come now?" Right? Like, we are a working farm. We have things to do, but come now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was just so delightful to meet this gentleman who at 70 or 64 years old, retired from living on the East Coast and moved to a farm on a volcano on the side of a mountain, right, with no farming experience. And
Incredible.
I mean, that's courage right there.
Yes, that is courage.
So his farm is from 1905, was created by Japanese people that lived in that area at that time. And they were able to layer lava, right? Because Hawaii is mostly lava, to build walls that then they could put dirt that then you could grow trees. So it's this layering effect on the farm. And it's a beautiful regenerative. Once again, the soil is cared for. So he's a coffee and macadamia nut farmer primarily, but there's bananas and there's papayas and there's, it's that diversity. So for regenerative, you have diverse crops because all of that is what's nourishing the microbiome of the soil. Yes. And so what he had shared with me is that when he first purchased that farm, it was a conventional farm. So they were using Roundup. And at one point, after about 6 months of running this farm, he's like, "There's no birds. Why are there no birds? Like, we're in Hawaii. Why does my farm not have birds?" And so he found a book that I think I have it right here called The Permaculture Promise. And this one book taught him how to restore his land. And so he read that book and he no longer used chemicals and started figuring out what you do for pest control and things like that are natural without using chemicals. And in that 6 years has been able to create just a thriving, diverse ecosystem and restore the land. And so, I mean, there's so much wisdom in that one, it doesn't matter how old you are to make changes, right? And so that's one good thing. Our age doesn't limit us. And then also realizing that the land restores quickly.
Yes.
So it doesn't take 20 years, that just starting with whatever we're doing, whether it's our own backyards or, that we can do things that really help restore the land. And once again, as we're putting more like, he's collecting the banana leaves and the macadamia nut shells and all those things go into his compost. As we're making this healthy organic matter, you're pulling carbon from the air. So people are so concerned about global warming. The solution to global warming is restoring our soil.
Regenerative farming. It is restoring the soil.
And it's such a beautiful thing that we've actually set ourselves up perfectly. We need the carbon, right? The carbon in the air is not a problem. The problem is our earth isn't breathing and we don't all know how to take care of it. So if we can start putting those practices in place, we're going to see so much like life happening as we teach or restore the soil so that it can breathe again.
Oh, that's so good. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Chris, I want you to talk about the impact of AI as you see it. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Dawn Livingston, your host on the Transcend and Succeed show. Join me Fridays at 2 p.m. Central for limitless inspiration and ways to help you transcend your limitations. Tune into the Achieve TV network and the Voyage to Vitality channel. Transcend and Succeed show, right here on A360 TV.
We're having a conversation with Christy Jones, and in this conversation, she's talking about regenerative farming. She's been talking about the connection that we have from the inside and coming out with that in terms of listening internally and choosing to say yes to different things. But we're also in this space going to talk about AI. So let me bring her back in. And as we're having this conversation about AI, first of all, what is AI?
So, AI is artificial intelligence, which, we've all been exposed to AI, whether we're talking to Siri on our phone or what is that thing that people have in their house and they talk to it and it turns on the music or whatever?
Maybe Alexa?
Yeah, that's it. I don't, that. I mean, all these things are a type of AI. And so we are in a time of advanced technology and being aware. I think there's some fear around it, which there probably should be because it is unknown and there's some pretty devastating things that it could be bringing in. But I think it also opens up a conversation that relates back to what we've just been talking about.
Yes.
So if we can get that, we were first starting to talk about listening within, right? And really taking care of our own internal garden.
Yes.
Right? Noticing what's going on within ourselves. Do we have weeds we need to pull, right? Or do we need more water? Do we need more fertile soil, right? And then we started looking at regenerative farming of how are we caring for the soil? So how are we caring for the soil? How are we caring for ourselves, right? And then when we're caring for ourselves, when we have an awareness of caring for the earth, that opens up the door to, really looking at technologies. So if we can look at just technology in general, not necessarily AI, but we've noticed in the last, maybe 10, 12 years that technology has become more prevalent in our lives. Whether we've been really aware of it. I know I'm way more addicted to this thing than I was 10 years ago, right? It's in my hand a lot more often. And so technology has changed there's a site that I'm going to recommend everyone look at called the Center for Humane Technology.
Yes.
That technology has creeped in and we're on, how often do we find ourselves on our phone way more than we want to? Right? All of a sudden it's been an hour and we've gotten stuck into something that we're listening to. So one of the founders of Humane Technology was part of, there's a community of people that created the like button for Facebook. They thought they were really doing great things. And then they realized that what they were doing has caused a lot of mental, emotional issues, a lot of disconnection, a lot of, this polarization in society has come from our technology because the goal was for them to make money. They needed to keep our eyes on the screen.
Right.
So our connection with each other has been replaced a lot of times with technology, right? And so the founder of Center for Humane Technology realized what was going on and is advocating and is creating a call to action that, we want technology, but we want technology that is humane. So every single time we're on the phone or on social media, our choices, are we making ethical choices in our own behavior when we're using technology? And so that is kind of the call to action that there's, and I can send you some links or we can put some links in, but I would say even just going to Center of Humane Technology, there's a movie called The Social Dilemma. There's many talks and resources on there that you can start educating yourself about what does humane technology look like. But he explains how they, purposely manipulated us humans, right? So that we would stay on, and how misleading it's been, how polarizing it's been. And, one of the things he talked about is a lot of young girls are concerned about their body and how they look, and they'd start looking on YouTube, and all of a sudden it would take them automatically to videos about becoming bulimic. And so there's this, a lot of things that have been incredibly damaging that we might not be aware of what the young girls in society have been exposed to, or for young men, it would take them to more violent dating apps or videos. And so we need to be aware and educated that, there's a lot of really damaging things out there, but we can actually make a difference with that too. So how can we, once again, put these same type of practices in,
Yes.
that if we're being, authentic in ourselves and coming from a place of kindness and compassion for ourselves and others, that's going to be reflected in how we use technology. And then also that's going to lead into how do we use AI?
I think what I really appreciate about the Center for Humane Technology is that they offer solutions. That's been one of the things I have been the most frustrated about, with people saying there's an issue here, there's an issue here. Yeah, there are tons of issues or things that somebody may be unhappy about and may have a beautiful grandstand to be able to talk all about it. But if they're coming with their need, but not their seed. And Jim Rohn used to say, he's an American entrepreneur and mentor to Darren Hardy, don't come to me with your need, come to me with your seed. Bring your solutions, bring your ideas, because that's so much more powerful. And so whether you agree with us about regenerative farming or Roundup or insects being outside, or you agree with us or not about AI or technology, the whole idea here is to be able to shine light on different conversations or different ideas that are out there. And for me, it's consistently about being able to share with people different solutions that are out there, or to point them towards resources for different solutions that are out there. So as you were talking about AI, what are some things that works really, really well?
Yeah, well, one, I highly recommend the book Scary Smart by Mo Gaddit. It gives a really clear outline of the history of AI and where we are with AI. And that book is, once again, a call for action that he said, right now we're at this stage of being like parents to AI. AI is in its infancy stage, and we have about 10 years before it hits its teenage stage, where it's learning from us. It's learning how it's learning about humans. So we have an opportunity to teach AI to love and value humanity and nature. And if we do that, we're going to have a really good relationship. The opportunity is that AI will see value in human life, right? And in nature. If we are training AI with how a lot of times we're seeing people treat each other online, then, AI may decide like, hey, humanity's the problem. So we're really in a time of, we don't know what's going to happen. And so it is us, each of us, we are the solution. So how we interact on any type of social media, only posting things that are going to enrich society and each other and create solutions.
Yes.
Right? Even if we are using Chat GPT, right? Treat it just like you would your best friend. I'd like to write this paper. Could you please help me? Thank you very much. That was so helpful, right? It's learning from our behavior and our conversations, and get creative, right? Where else do you feel called that you can make a difference in communicating, online with each other, using technology? We also want to create artificial intelligence that helps humanity.
Yes.
So being aware, and then also, what are we purchasing? You talked about our dollars. Are we going to purchase? Let's support the AI that actually helps humanity and is supportive to human health and planetary health. And we, will not support the ones that are actually harmful.
Yes.
So that's just
one of the things I was most excited about when I heard about how technology was moving in terms of the surgical realm was that you could have a surgical theater set up someplace around the world, and somebody who's a specialist could be in their home country, and that they could be doing these different surgeries for different people in different places, all of it being robotic, all of it being going through all the information gateways, right? Using satellite, all the different kinds of things. And the person who is in their home country who is having this surgery is having the very, very best of the best, having grown up in a third world country where medicine wasn't freely available, it was just so encouraging to hear that technology had moved into space being able to do that. And I was super excited for the potential of what that happens to look like. And I think also with that then comes voting with our dollars. What's the cost for that? They're going to still continue to be, the Mercy ship and other vehicles around the world where people go in medicine to help other people. Or there could be, for farming as well, Heifer International going and help people with their regenerative farming and or being able to create a livelihood using things that are low technology, and yet technology plays such an important piece for getting those different things into different places around the world.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest message is, how can we continue to pause and notice that there are challenges in this time? And then how can we look and see what are the solutions? What can we create? And to have that mindset that we are the answer, right? We cannot wait for anyone else to be the answer. So the more we're coming together and allowing our creativity and our ideas, and sometimes even these ideas we think, could that even work? Right? Like, I mean, think of so many things that have been invented that we wouldn't have even 20 years ago would have been like, what? That's crazy. But somebody was willing to bring out that idea. So the more we can be supportive of each other and solution focused. That's another reason I love Dr. Zach Bush, is that he's created a 40-foot mitochondria that eats plastic and tires. He said it was just an unfinished carbon chain, right? Here's a challenge, right? Here's something that we have plenty of plastic and tires, and here's a machine that eats that plastic and tires and turns it into biochar that once again we can use for regenerative farming. I mean, it's
exactly
beautiful.
It's beautiful. There's a place in, I want to say, Huntington Beach, where they make surfboards, and half of material used to make a surfboard is considered excess waste. And yet there are these giant grubs that will eat that, and they are fine. They consume it, and what they leave is less than 10%, way less than 10% of what would have been there to start out with. Wow. And so they just come a week and they pick up the excess and go feed their worms, their grubs, and what a beautiful thing, right? A way of being able to get rid of excess in a way that's helpful for our planet and helpful for the people who are dealing with excess, who are business people, right? And looking for ways to be able to do. I also appreciate that Dr. Zach Bush talks about things like redox, the cell signaling. And so I know that he has something that's an IM, and this is not necessarily a commercial for him, but yet he's one of the few triple board certified physicians in America. And I have great respect for that. My sister's a double board certified physician, and I have great respect for people who choose to not just become a doctor, but say that there's even more that I want to learn. There's even more that I want to be able to understand and to be able to do something with. And as he has taken his lifetime of information and poured it into looking at where we are and looking at our future based on information from the past, he is looking for solutions. And so one of those is for gut health. And what does it do for the gut to help the gut to become more healthy?
Well, it starts looking back at what have we done to our environment. And we know that starting in 1940s, we were exposed to, antibiotics became widespread. And we know that breaks apart the gut lining, and it also kills the microbiome, the, healthy bacteria. It kills the good and the bad, right? And so that, and then along with the pesticides we've been spraying, especially Roundup, because Roundup is water soluble. So that goes and it breaks the gut and our brain lining. So the ion gut support is prehistoric soil, right? It's from Mother Earth. He said it's so interesting that Mother Earth would have the solution to what we've done to her. And so by consuming that before you eat, it's bringing back that gut brain lining. So your gut lining is only one cell layer thick. So it's just bringing that back together so that, when you're consuming food, so 3 times a day before you eat, it's bringing that gut and brain lining back together. So we're not having things leak where they're not supposed to. right? We're
Yes.
bringing our integrity, right? Bringing our self-identity back together. And the
Yes.
other beautiful thing that it does is that when you're taking it before you eat, you absorb more nutrients from your food. So for us to be healthy, we need that dense nutrition. And so as we're healing more of our soil and getting more nutrient dense food, and I mean, here's the thing, when we heal the soil, we won't need ion biome. Right? Right now,
Right.
we need it until we heal the soil. And so the sooner we heal the soil, hopefully we don't need hardly any supplements, because our food will give us, once again, food will be our medicine and give us what we need. But for now,
Yes.
it is a recommendation to have that, to really protect your gut and your brain lining.
Yes. Love that. We're going to take another commercial break. And actually, Christy, this is going to be your commercial, which is another type of redox cell signaling.
Do you feel like you've been having to work hard to be healthy? I have felt like this too. My name is Christy Jones, and I'm a holistic health and mindfulness coach and educator. And I have found some efficient and simple ways that we can really help maintain our health, even in challenging times. We know we are in a time where our food is nutrient lacking. We're not always getting the nutrients that we need from our food. We also know we're in a time of more toxicity than we even want to think about. Yet there are still things that we can do that help us to support our health and well-being. One of the things that I recommend for my clients and I use for myself to achieve that is a product called ASEA. Now, what I love about ASEA, gives our body exactly what it needs. Our body makes something called redox molecules. And redox molecules are our cell-to-cell communication. They help our cells to communicate, to know what to do in our body to achieve our optimal health. Now, when we do not have enough redox molecules in our body and our cells are not communicating, what do you think is going to happen? We may deal with some of the health challenges and the fatigue that many of us experience. However, when you have those molecules, you have enough redox molecules, you're setting yourself up for a foundation of health. So what is ASEA? ASEA provides our body with the exact redox molecules that many of us are lacking so that we can support our health and well-being.
I love about Christy Jones is that she's always sharing solutions, and the solutions look at what's taking place in our lives, in our environment, and then how can we find a solution, even in the crisis, that's going to help us move forward. And so I have used both Ion Biome and also redox cell signaling through ASEA, and have found them both to be incredibly helpful. I know that this may be a little bit triggering for some, but I gave my husband a beautiful set of really super sharp knives on Christmas, and he was super excited and wanted me to use it. And one of them I did, and I just touched a finger and the blood, and I knew that wasn't stitches, but it's just enough for me. And so I went and got the ASEA drink because I had heard that people had done this, and I was like, yeah, right. And I put my finger in the drink, and it was just amazing to watch how it began to, because it was signaling that this was the part of my body that needed to have help. And the help came in, and I had never had anything like that happen before, where it healed so quickly. And truly the experience of, wow, that's amazing. And so
cells knew what to do.
Wants to heal. The earth, our globe wants to heal. It just needs to be given the directions, the way home to be able to do that. Christy, in your work in the classrooms, you talked a little bit about how you've moved from not being able to bring your kale and quinoa into the classroom because food was allowed right after when we came back, and then began looking at regenerative farming and some of those pieces. What are you noticing about the students now compared to when you first came into the business? Now, I understand that you might be working in a different district, you might have a different population potentially, but just kind of overall, the large brush, what are you noticing? Differences good, and maybe ones that you think, isn't that interesting?
Well, one is that I believe that our children now, we don't show up here by accident, right?
Right.
We're here on purpose. And then I
Yes.
believe our children now are more intuitive. I think they're more empathic, right? They pick up on each other's emotions more, and
Much.
they don't necessarily understand what they're experiencing. But I see that children, like, I'll give you an example. My sister, my nephew is 3.5, and he has a little friend that from the time he was 2, he just wanted to pick up trash. He'd go to the park and his mom would be like, "Do you want to play?" And he just wanted his little trash picker, and he just wants to pick up trash. And they thought, oh, it's just a phase. Well, that was at 2. He's now 3.5, and now he's into recycling.
Yes.
And so there's something in this kid that is not the normal behavior. But he has this passion for the environment, for keeping it healthy, right? That's literally just come through him. And so, also having experience in the classroom with children that have said that they're very empathic to other people's feelings, they feel energy greatly, that, I believe these souls that are coming in are more aware, and they really need the tools to realize that them learning how to listen to their internal wisdom and these ideas that they have are here for solutions. And so I believe that they need those tools. So I do see that place of children being more aware and wise if they are given the platform to express themselves.
Yes.
We're also seeing that children, also are dealing with the effects of technology, really short attention spans, sometimes just not being able to like stay quiet. Like when they're in class, they just have the freedom to talk, right? I think teachers are really struggling with classroom management of being able to teach with, they were used to eating at home, and, they'll just be eating in the classroom, right? Like some of these behaviors from COVID are really present in the classroom. And I also believe that, a lot of families have gone through some challenges, and there's a lot of impact on the children because, once again, the children pick up from their environment. So I believe our children do need tools and support so that they can really be the best version of themselves and be a support to humanity. And I also believe that they are more intuitive. So we've got the challenges that they're facing, but we've also get that they're really wise at the same time. So how do we give them those tools so that they are able to uncover their superpowers? They're able to work together in collaboration and honor each other's differences and strengths, and then also turn their attention to solutions, right, within the environment. And
And I think one of the things that I have noticed is that with technology, there can be, going back to what you said about the likes and looking for the comparison. I feel like that there's a whole different understanding of comparing, which I would say is a subsection of judgment. And that because they're more sensitive, or many of them are more sensitive to each other's emotions, that can really create some conflict internally that they don't know necessarily unless we start to give tools and start to help with words. And one of the things that I found really interesting, I had a class that had a number of kids who were on the spectrum in it, and it was a choir class, and everybody who wanted to be there could be there. It was a safe, good environment. We had some one-on-one aides who were there who were incredibly helpful. And one of them would carry around a picture that was laminated that had a whole bunch of different facial expressions on it. And underneath the facial expression, it was kind of cartoony, would be a word. And so she would be asking for feedback. How are you feeling? Show me, point to the one, tell me how you're feeling. What are you experiencing? And just having that outlet of being able to, show, to express, changed everything. And that reminds me of when our daughter was maybe 5 months old or so, we began to teach her super basic, not less than 10 words in sign language, but we wanted her to be able to tell us if she was more or she'd had enough food. And even though she wasn't speaking yet, we wanted to gift her the gift of communication, being able to let us know what was taking place for her inside of her own being and her own body, and wanting to then translate into her life later on and being able to communicate those things as well. So I do think that as adults, because we do get to watch and see and to be part of, and, somebody recently said that wisdom is, healed pain. Maybe that's true. Certainly wisdom comes from seeing some things and maybe deciding the way that we feel like is better at this point. And I know that for me, it's things that I have believed or thought at different points, and I've changed positions on them with new information, with new community I have been part of. That again comes with new information. And so not asking for people to take a stand and be stuck with that, but to be aware and to start this conversation, or to continue the conversation, or deepen the conversation with our children.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I really believe children being exposed to the resources of the Center for Humane Technology, and them being educated on, the people saying, hey, this is what we were doing. We were trying to keep you on your phone. Right? When have you noticed that you've been on for 2 hours and you've been and them understanding that it wasn't their fault, right? Like their short attention span, like it's almost like we've given kids, alcohol, drugs, and and said, okay, yeah, and like they have free reign with all this stuff, and then we're like, oh, but wait, you shouldn't be doing that. So we've given them, and it's all addictive, and then we expect them to have control when what adults even have control, right? We're all been exposed to this. And so I think they've gotten a lot of blame, but understanding that these things were done purposely for money, and that they can actually be part of the solution and come up with ideas, so that one is that they can help also be parents to AI and to create a world where we have AI that's helpful, right, and supportive of humanity. And then two, of realizing, what do I want my relationship to be with technology, and also be part of creating ethical, humane technology, because they're brilliant. And I think that inviting them in to be those solutions, to be part of the solution, is really important.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on that. Christy, as you look to the next 3 to 6 months, what are some things that you are working on or considering working on?
One is, I do want to be bringing this education into with children about technology and the impact that's been there for them, and empower them, right? That they have choice, that they can make an impact, that they're part of the solution. And then also, so a lot now that the school year is starting, is what can I do to empower these children and their families and the educators and the community at large, right? And around technology, about regenerative farming, about reconnecting to the soil, but then even just more opportunity to gather together and have meals together.
Yes.
How important it is that for us to have connection over food that nourishes our body. Yes. And I just was introduced to a woman that has created an urban homestead out of her house in Diamond Bar, and has over 30 different fruit trees, 6 different types of bananas. Like, I didn't even know you could grow bananas in this area, and mangoes. And so I think there's so much to learn. So really continuing to meet people and to gather and to eat together, right? I think, as Dr. Bush said, we are most healthy when food was created for us to gather and to be in fellowship. And I think that's something that I know for myself that I've missed with my kids being grown. And I think that's really important. Another aspect is looking at taking out my grass and regenerating the property. I feel very called to, how am I being a steward of the land that I'm on? And how can I take out the grass that's been so, like, the soil so impacted, and to regenerate that with lasagna layering. And then, plant a pollinator garden and some vegetables. And that's something new for me, because I don't usually grow food, and I would like to. So that's another area. And
Yes.
yeah.
I know somebody who is becoming an expert and has been learning from many experts about what can we do to help. And one of the things that she continues to say is if everybody would, whether they are renting or owning, would go find a native grass to that particular area, plant a native grass, and whether it's the centerpiece of your yard or it's tucked in a corner, doesn't matter. And you may or may not see beneficial insects on it, but that the native grasses are the base for everything else that we have. And so coming into that space of taking care of our land, our soil. Christy, it's delightful to be with you again. Thank you so much. And we look forward to another conversation in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. It's been so much fun.